Alright kids, let's figure out where we were. Last time we joined Hiro and the crew, they had just finished going through the Greece epoch episode of Daikatana. Now this is the part where we kind of inferred that John Romero was making more of a Hexen-style RPG shooter than a fast-paced id Software corridor crawler. Hiro and the crew, they just finished defeating Medusa, and her body released energy which recharged the Daikatana that allowed them to make an attempt at time travel. But Mishima was waiting for them in the time stream and knocked them off course to medieval Norway, where we're going to see if the game is still going to continue its trend of goodwill, or if the shitstorm is really about to hit us.
Where are we now?
I'm sorry, guys. I underestimated Mishima's control over the Daikatana.
Pretty dismal place. It's cold, too. Damn cold.
Is that a village over there?
Looks pretty primitive.
Like something out of the Dark Ages.
Damn. Looks like our little jaunt through the time stream used up the sword's charge. We're stuck here.
Hey, we're not beat yet, kid. As long as we're alive and kicking, we still got a chance.
A chance? I hate to burst your bubble, but I wouldn't count on any Gorgons popping up to help us recharge the sword in this place.
Then we'll have to find someone who can.
If the Hexen vibes were strong before, they're completely off the charts now. We're in a Norwegian-inspired medieval town where the bubonic plague is turning people into zombies. Sorry, buboids. Historical accuracy notwithstanding, the ambience here is ridiculous. Hiro turns Van Helsing pretty much right away with the bolter gun, a mini crossbow, and using it on bats, zombies, and even werewolves. It's a great little weapon. Great fire rate, decent damage, a little tough to aim at fast-flying targets, but otherwise... God, please stop doing that. Once again, the crew has no idea what the fuck is going on around here, so we get to go trudging through the empty village we've arrived at. I'm going to let you know now, this is my favorite of the 4 episodes. Dripping with atmosphere, dark fantasy vibes, horror influences, and some really clever puzzles and weapons. Episode 3 just absolutely wins on every count possible. Once upon a time, there was supposed to be a 3rd game in the Heretic Hexen series before it got split into 2 franchises, and that 3rd game was going to be titled Hecatomb. Outside of asking the man himself, I am absolutely positive that Romero used ideas that were going to be in Hecatomb here in the Plague Village, particularly the Silver Claw. Oh, this melee weapon might seem a little odd at first, what with you already having a melee weapon in the form of the Daikatana, but once you start running into werewolves, you'll find they don't die to regular weaponry. They'll go down, but they'll get back up again eventually. The game doesn't tell you this outright, but any horror fan worth their salts knows that werewolves are weak against silver, which means your knife-tipped silver glove is the only way to permanently stop their rampaging. A really neat little touch, especially since the game doesn't force you into using it, but you learn quick through trial and error, and I actually ended up using the Silver Claw a lot more than on just werewolves. After some thorough investigation of the village, the crew finds a church to hole up in.
Those things give me the creeps.
That's not all they'll give you if you're not careful. Ever hear of the bubonic plague? Stuff's highly contagious. Whole damn village seems to be infested. So watch yourselves.
Point taken.
Who's there?
Please, don't hurt me. My name is Musildi. I mean you no harm, I swear it.
Then why were you hiding?
Like you, I was seeking refuge from the buboids. Are you strangers to this region?
Yes. We come from a faraway land.
Never have I seen such a weapon as this. Magnificent craftsmanship. I suspect magic had a hand in its creation. I can still sense the sword's latent power. Are you some sort of mystic warriors?
I guess you could say that. We're on a quest.
Of a noble nature?
I suppose so. We're out to overthrow an evil tyrant. Unfortunately, we can't reach him until we find a way to recharge our sword.
I see. Then perhaps there's a way that you can help my village, and we can help you in return.
How so?
Okay, so this is a long cutscene, so let's boil it down. Recently, a mad wizard named Nar basically has spread the plague throughout the land, and the king, Garroth, went mad because his wife and child died from the disease. He used to be a paladin, and in his grief he shattered his sword, the Purifier. Our monk friend Musilde thinks that the Purifier could potentially recharge the Daikatana once it's reassembled, but the crew needs to find all 7 pieces first and then deal with the madness of the king. But before they can even do all of that, they need 3 keys to open the town gates. 1 sleeping beneath the dead, 1 buried below the church, and 1 near a dragon. Those are the only 3 clues we get before we're off and running to find those 3 keys. And let me tell you, those clues are all we need. That and some serious brain power. I know I mentioned already that I love Hexen, but I fucking love Hexen, and this whole segment tickled me pink. Now, I'll admit that I'm not the smartest dad in the garage, and this segment took me forever to deduce, which is a sign of good Hexen-style bullshit puzzling. Musilde tells us in the cutscene that he barred off the entrance to the church basement a long time ago, so he isn't sure how we're going to get down there. There's a statue of a dragon in the village square surrounded by a frozen well, and there's a cemetery out behind the church with a locked gate. Obvious plans with super subtle answers that had me running around like an idiot for an hour until I figured it out and slapped myself across the forehead. While I was doing that, I found the dopefish hidden away in an underwater well. Easily the most difficult enemy in the game, somehow, partially due to the fact that the water in this area is nearly frozen, so Hiro takes cold damage being in the water. But there's a mana skull at the bottom, so I grabbed that and oh, I haven't told you about the mana skull? The metal skull full of mana that grants you temporary invincibility, and when you pick it up, plays a brief heavy metal guitar lick? This thing is so fucking awesome, it should be illegal. Anyways, to start with, there's a headstone in the cemetery that you need to push. You can tell it's special because it's a different color than the rest. Once I bumped into it accidentally and opened the gate to the tombs below, I had that aha moment that you get when you play puzzle games. You know, that moment of realization where you suddenly understand how the game's bullshit works and now you're better armed for it. The cemetery has the first of the 3 keys and a shard of the Purifier. Once I had that, I did some meandering to figure out where I was going to put these 3 keys. Will you please stop doing that? Inside this innocent-looking wheelhouse that you have to break into is where the 3 keys need to go. Now, I don't know about you kids, but a lava-filled receptacle for 3 magic keys with skulls embossed on them is something that I need for my living room. For practical purposes. Maybe for a safe. Maybe just to lock the front door. I just need it. The dragon was so much easier than it had any right to be. You just need to shoot the frozen water at the base of the statue. The ice shatters and you can dive down for the key. I simultaneously felt like an idiot and incredibly smart. Figuring out the church puzzle is just a matter of paying attention to your environment. There's a rope in the church bell tower that you can climb, which I did, and you can get out onto the roof from there, which I did. There's a golden soul to grab as well. But there's also an open window that lets you into the barred off section of the church, along with a ring of fire protection and another Purifier shard. Play the organ, open the secret entrance into the basement, get your key, and get back to the wheelhouse. Something to take notice of here and now is that this episode of the game uses a lot of switches to activate doors and ladders, and the switches are usually the same color as the surrounding walls. So if you're stuck in a spot that you can't figure out how to get around, look at the walls nearby.
This path should take us up the side of the mountain and put us right in front of Gareth's castle. Hopefully we won't encounter too much trouble along the way. Is something wrong?
Just feeling a bit queasy from that rat bite. It'll pass.
Not if that rat was a carrier for the plague that's been sweeping over this godforsaken place.
Maybe we should stop a while so you can rest.
No, I'll be fine. Let's keep going.
Suit yourself.
If Makiko dies from the plague, is it bad that I won't be unhappy about that? The Daikatana is almost level 4 out of a max level 5 by now, and you'll notice it's glowing and shining and shimmering. Every time it gains a level, it begins to glow with more power, which is a neat little trick, but it also gets a little over the top by the end of the game. Personally, though, it's a John Romero game, so at this point I've come to accept pretty much anything that's being thrown at me. Okay kids, we've got a sorcerer to defeat now, so that includes new enemies like armored henchmen. They come in a variety of types. Archers, axemen, swordsmen, and then we've also got poison-vomiting worms that just kind of loiter around like little assholes. Jesus Christ, the details on these enemies and these environments. I'm really trying to not just be repetitive about that aspect, but the aesthetics are fucking getting to me.
We should stop and rest before going in.
Not on my account.
You sure? You're not looking well at all.
No, I'll be fine. Let's keep going.
Fine. Then let's keep moving. Makiko!
Look, I'm not helpless.
Nobody said you were. But you can't go on like this. We've got to get you some help.
Maybe you're right. You'll have to go on without me.
Makiko!
No can do.
Hey, what are you doing, you
Hate to disappoint you, lady, but we don't need no martyrs. At least not today.
You'll just have to hang in there until we can find a cure for that damned plague. Come on.
Hiro, come on! Let's move along. We need to bust some more skulls.
With Superfly being an absolute legend by carrying Makiko around for the remainder of the episode, this means it's up to you to do all the damage dealing. On the plus side, we don't have to listen to Makiko talk anymore. Now look, kids, I want to have a little disclaimer here. I want to make sure that I point out that it's the writing of Mikiko and the direction of the acting of Mikiko that's really what I'm taking umbrage to, not the character herself. There's things we'll get into about her later, but I just wish that Romero had presented Makiko in a less annoying light, something a little less grating. Also, her obvious lack of care for Superfly earlier kind of puts her on my shit list as well, so speaking of hearing spoken lines the wrong way, the Axemen keep saying something along the lines of enemy target or shit, fuck, I don't know what they're trying to say, but it sounds like they keep dropping the R word. Like, I know that can't be what they're saying. Like, there's just no way, right? Right? That can't be right.
Odds or even.
John! The rest of the episode is one gorgeously dark fantasy environment after another as the crew makes their way to the sorcerer Nar. I've picked up the ballista at this point, which is probably the single most powerful weapon per round in the entire game. If the giant-ass stake that it launches doesn't kill an enemy in one shot, the splash damage from the resulting explosion will. This is another weapon not to use at point-blank range because that splash damage is fairly brutal. This isn't a weapon to tread lightly with, nor should you be cavalier with it. Yeah, and the ammo isn't even described as stakes. They're described as logs. Just shooting little explosive logs. Nothing incredibly awesomely badass about that at all. Fucking fantastic. Holy dick, this thing is awesome. Switches and traps are what comprise this section of the game, meandering through 3 castles. Turns out there's 2 other minor sorcerers that we have to muscle through first before we get to Nar. It's a simple matter of paying close attention for levers and switches to open up the environment. Eventually, we run into the first wizard of the 3, Stavros, who goes down after 3 ballista logs and leaves behind his staff, which summons lava rocks and flings them at enemies. It's a magical rocket launcher and is exactly as cool to use as it sounds.
Getting the feeling we're being led like lambs to the slaughter?
You're being paranoid.
Considering everything that's happened, can you blame me?
I suppose not. But there's no turning back now, so let's just stay on our guard and concentrate on finding King Gareth.
Stavros' castle was on theme with a fire-wielding wizard, and Windrax's castle is no different. He commands electricity. Before we get to that, there's a bullshit segment involving diving under ice through freezing water to get below the outer wall and lower a drawbridge. Freezing damage and choking underwater? Sounds on brand. Oh, what's that up there? A fucking dragon? Here, let me use my ballista and... Man, I'll take that. This section is honestly pretty tough. Werewolves everywhere, flaming sword soldiers in abundance, archers up high to hit you in the back after you pass by underneath them. There's also a series of traps involving electricity that you need to play nice with, meaning go slow and stay low in order to survive. You'll need to find Windrax's spellbook and use it to deactivate what is basically a magic lightning rod, which causes Windrax to appear to kick your ass. He's far more legit than Stavros, as you'll actually have to duel him a little before he runs to escape through a secret exit to the outer walls of the castle. Stay on his ass and murder him once you're outside. Then you'll get his staff, which lets loose wisps of ball lightning that hover and zap anything in proximity.
We'll have to cut across this cemetery. It's probably the shortest route to Gareth's castle.
Yo, Home Slice, you sure you want to do that? May not be wise to mess with the undead. I mean, hell, the way our luck's been going, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if this place was freaking haunted.
What's the matter? You're not superstitious, are you?
Of course not. Just, being, cautious, that's all. One can never be too careful. Right?
Right. I'm afraid she slipped into a coma. We'd better hurry.
I love how Hiro straight up asks if Superfly is superstitious. Like they haven't been literally traveling through time and battled wizards or recharged a fucking sword using Medusa's residual life force, but a haunted cemetery is just a little much to swallow, you know? Nar's crypt is so fucking cool. It is oozing with heretical necromantic atmosphere. Stained glass windows, chandeliers, lava beds, and the introduction of my least favorite enemy in this episode. The lightning staff Valkyries? This is apparently a Norse-inspired area according to everything I've read, so I guess Valkyries is accurate enough. They have a double-tipped electric staff which not only hurts like hell up close, but shoots lightning at you from afar. They're good enemies, but ooh, I hated fighting them. Nar appears without ceremony and goes down like a bitch with a couple of ballista logs. This guy was built up as a heavy. I was expecting something more than just shooting twice and then scooping up the remains. But like I said, the bosses in this game are far more bark than they are bite. Nar's staff is just sinful looking. Look at this thing. I only used it once because it scared the hell out of me, and I think it did more damage to me than everything else in the room. Holy Jesus! We find the final piece of the purifier, and then...
You did good, kid. That creep got what he deserved.
Yeah, I guess so.
What's the matter?
Nothing. Just... there's something about these items we picked up from Nar. It's hard to describe. There's a stench of evil about them. Makes me uncomfortable. Almost feel leery about using them.
Well, don't. No telling what kind of nasty firepower this Gareth crackpot is going to be packing. We're going to need all the aces up our sleeve we can muster.
You're right. Let's get on with it.
Okay, first we're cracking jokes about Superfly being superstitious, and now suddenly we're leery of the evil in these wizard staffs. Hiro, please, make up your mind, my dude. The rest of this episode is pretty straightforward. Push your way through waves of enemies who are preventing you from reaching the king, pathfinding for Superfly since he's carrying Makiko and is totally useless while doing so, and then we eventually find Gareth.
Dude sounds loony enough, all right. Looks like we found our crazy king.
Let me try to reason with him.
Yeah, right. Good luck.
My name is Hiro Miyamoto. These are my friends, Superfly Johnson and Mikiko Ebihara. We are merely foreigners from a faraway land who have gotten lost on our way home.
Ah, yes. Nar warned me of your coming. Heathens, all of you. You murdered my family. And now you wish to usurp my throne.
No, that's not true. Please, you've got to believe me. We mean you and your people no harm. In fact, We were hoping you'd be willing to use the vast powers at your command to help us get back to where we came from. In exchange, we offer...
Lies! All lies!
But I speak the truth, I swear it. We even brought you the...
Silence! I'll suffer no more of your filthy lies. It's high time you three were put to death. Even if that means soiling my hands to dispose of you myself.
Alright, I guess we're in for a tough fight, so let's... Yeah, that tracks.
So what now? The king's down, but by no means out for the count, and he's still a basket case.
Musilde. I was wondering when you'd show up.
I have been monitoring your progress. You have done well. Only one task remains.
I believe this belongs to you, Your Highness.
The purifier, restored to its former glory. How did you...
Alright, so this is another 10-minute long cutscene, so I'll sum it up. Gareth's sanity is restored now that he's been given the purifier. Musilde crafts a cure for the plague and heals Makiko, and Gareth uses the purifier to recharge the Daikatana. With that, the crew attempt to time jump, but Mishima appears again to knock them off course, while teasing that one of the crew is actually a traitor. Gee, I wonder who. This lands us in our final episode, San Francisco 2030.
Ooh, smells nasty in here.
Wonder where we are. More importantly, when.
Looks like we're in some sort of jail.
It's too bad you haven't figured out how to control our time jumps.
Actually, I've got a feeling it's just a matter of clearing my thoughts and focusing on an intended destination. At least that's what I tried during our last attempt. But Mishima threw us off course before we had a chance to find out if we were headed in the right direction.
Then our first priority is to bust out of here.
I'll second that. I've had my fill of prison cells.
Think he can help us?
Just leave it to me. Tell us what we want to know, and maybe you'll come out of this with your limbs still attached to the rest of your body.
I'd cooperate with my friend here if I were you. It's not wise to cross him, especially when he's got a serious mad-on going.
I can see that. You're in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Deep inside of Alcatraz. You know, the rock. I take it you've heard of it. Where you folks been? Alright, hey, chill, man. It's 2030, okay?
Tell me, what's it like on the outside? Anything strange been going on recently?
You mean other than society as we know it going down the crapper?
Sounds like Kage has already established a major power base in this time period. This reeks of his methods. Wouldn't surprise me in the least if his influence extended to the military and their higher-ups.
Did you say Mishima? There's a research center in the city by that name.
Really? Looks like we found our next port of call.
San Francisco is... Look, it's not necessarily bad, per se. It's just a rough transition going from the two fantasy-inspired epic episodes back into a gritty future sci-fi experience. Starting off in Alcatraz is just rough, almost as rough as the swamps in future Japan. We've got rats, prison inmates, we have to crawl through vents and climb up ladders, pull a lot of switches to open up a lot of doors. Hiro picks up a Glock 2020 and a shotgun called a Slugger almost immediately. The Glock is pretty decent, especially on the rats, and the Slugger is just a disappointment. It's fine, it does the shotgun job, but the feedback on it is terrible, and there's no pump action animation to indicate that it's actually even firing, let alone a shotgun. I thought for sure that I was shooting spare slugs instead of shells for a while, until I caught the sound of the non-existent pump action afterwards.
Bring it on! Bring it on!
Knock it down!
And this is kind of a going rate with all the weapons in 2030. They're all in the gritty, dystopian, street-level bulletry kind of genre. Nothing exciting, mostly just there to be utilitarian. There is one that's kind of neat, and I enjoyed using on guards later on, but even that had a drawback. I'll point it out when we get there. In previous episodes, there have been either very distinct ladders to climb or just small mounts to jump on top of. With San Francisco, we're introduced to the concept of climbing pipes or iron rebar, but the climbing surface is so small that it makes it super difficult to maintain a good hold while trying to figure out where to jump off to. I had a number of frustrating jumping puzzles where I kept falling over and over because I couldn't get the right angle and either biffed the jump or fell off the pole entirely because I turned too far. We've also come from epic monsters and zombies and werewolves to fighting unarmed prisoners. Sure, they hit hard with their fists and will stoop up to pick up rocks from the ground to throw at you, but they're mostly as harmless as the rats that crawl all over the place. By this point in the game, I got Hiro up to level 10 and the sword to level 4.5, so there's nothing about the combat in Alcatraz that keeps me from moving forward. Oh no, it's all environment and companion AI that are fucking me over now. I spent 10 goddamn minutes on a single jump, climbing from a ladder to a dangling piece of flooring that I had opened up. I could not get myself lined up properly with this goddamn jump. I kept hitting my head on the narrow ceiling above the jump because I had to leap off of a ladder in order to do so. I was honestly flummoxed. I thought for sure there was something I was doing wrong, that I had to go all the way back down because maybe the thing I dropped from the ceiling to make that hole in the first place had also breached a hole down below for me. No, I just couldn't get the angle right because of how close the ladder was to the fucking hole that I needed to jump up and grab onto. I eventually got it. I had to in order to proceed. But that was nearly a quitting moment for me, a very close straw to breaking this camel's back. But there's another later on that fucking stripped my noodles. Meanwhile, it ought to be noted that I've been picking up random items all through this area. Coal, saltpeter, a bottle, rando stuff that I noticed but I paid little attention to. Maybe it was prison trading goods. Maybe I'd have to talk to someone later and trade for something I needed. But no. It turns out that the courtyard I left Superfly and Makiko in has a weak wall that'll cave in if I blow it up. I've been collecting pieces of a homemade bomb without even realizing it or being told I needed to. Maybe I didn't trigger the cutscene, or maybe that cutscene had somehow skipped as well. But when the confirmation came, you created an explosive, and I got back to the crew, I was certainly shocked.
This is it. Freedom's just on the other side.
Hiro, you are literally a hero of time. You can lob a Molotov better than that, my dude. Immediately through the wall came my next point of frustration. Now, I haven't really talked too much about the companion AI or issues with them following or taking orders, because up to this point, the issues had been genuinely nominal. Sure, they got stuck in places here or there, or I had to run back and gather them from time to time, but this jump to the next area proved to be too much. At first, it was Mikiko. I just couldn't find her. Superfly and I had made the jump to the rebar and climb and reach the exit, but Makiko was nowhere to be found. Maybe she'd run back to the previous area, or maybe she'd simply disappeared. Nope. Somehow Makiko had failed to make the jump over to me and Superfly, something I accidentally found out when I missed the jump myself while searching for her.
What the? Oh no!
Yep. There she is, just standing there like an idiot. Not dead, just at the bottom of a ravine. Cool, fine. Okay, first issue I've had with this AI, so I reload my save, make sure Makiko follows me across, and go to the exit, only to find that Superfly has done the same fucking thing!
No! Hiro's been completely demolished!
Turns out if you try to just jump over and let both of them follow at the same time, one of them is going to fall down. So I told Superfly to stay, jumped across with Makiko, told her to stay, went back for Superfly, had him follow, and had them both join me at the exit. What a fucking process. I've got a freeze gun at this point, which shoots 3 cryospheres at a time, and can freeze anything in 1 or 2 hits. Problem with that is that they bounce around wildly if they miss, and are very likely to bounce back to you and hit you, which does a lot of damage. It's worse than the Ion Blaster, which only hurt you if you were standing in water. Now, I'm also dealing with security guards now, some of whom have jetpacks and chain guns, some of whom have rocket launchers that they love to use at point-blank range. Alright, we're gonna need to open up the waterway here so we can get off the rock. That means that the crew are gonna stay put while I take a swim swim and run into fucking sharks. Holy shit! I gotta give this game credit where credit is absolutely due. It is absurdly fun to shotgun sharks underwater, or to use the Daikatana on them if you're feeling sporting. I'm normally not one for sharks in video games. Large underwater swimming things just give me the phobias, but I was totally giggling while I was swimming head on towards these Jaws rejects and fragging them. Kids, we've arrived. This is it. The section of the game where I nearly called it quits, where I turned to a walkthrough for assistance. Something that's a lot harder to do than it sounds, because who's writing Daikatana walkthroughs in this day and age? What we've got here is a large, sunken section of the prison with quite a bit of it underwater. Sharks, prisoners, guards, you know the drill. Real quick note here, remember this graffiti about the hand of time and the dragon on the wall? That's important for later. There's obviously a jump to be made from the roof of the sunken building over to the next balcony and continue onwards, but for the fucking life of me, I can't figure out how to do it. Over across the water, there's a pipe I can climb up to a couple of secret areas with some ammo, a new weapon called the Rip Gun, which is 100% a standard issue chain gun with edginess, and dead ends everywhere. I'm surrounded by guards just on the other side of the wall who keep spouting the same goddamn line over and over. One of the dead ends has a high ceiling, which I think I'm supposed to somehow climb, but I can't. I try running up the slanted wall of the sunken building, but I can't. I reload my save, thinking I must have just bugged something out, that something must just not be opening right. Nothing changes. It's just half an hour in the same section and I just can't figure it out. So I resort to the walkthrough. One written well over a decade ago, and the author clearly didn't win any awards in English class, so that doesn't help. So then, finally, I go and look up a video on YouTube, and here, this right here. This tiny little drop into the water that felt like a dead end wasn't really a dead end. You have to go down and drop into the water here and find a ladder to pull yourself upwards onto the roof. I was livid. Finally, the game is leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I'm on edge. I'm anxious. After the ladder jumping fiasco, and now this, I'm checking corners, looking, searching, trying to imagine what fresh hell the game might have in store for me in far as bullshit jumping or navigating puzzles after this point. One more quick note. This graffiti, Death to Hiro, this caught me off guard and is something else to remember for later. Alright, I finally make it back to the crew, and it's time to get the hell off of this godforsaken rock. No pun intended.
Now, what is this place?
It's not part of the prison, that's for sure. Looks more like some sort of secret docking facilities.
Must be a safe house for one of those gangs Cassidy mentioned.
Makes sense. No one would think to look for them here.
If that's the case, then where is everybody?
Who cares? I don't intend to look a gift horse in the mouth. What matters is that we found ourselves a ride to the mainland. So let's hurry up and move out before any gang members do show up.
I'd better take this one. Never know. A second boat may come in handy later. And we don't want whoever's hideout this is to be able to follow us.
Fair enough. Just stay close. We don't want to get separated if we run into trouble.
Heads up, Hiro! We got company! Incoming, 6 o'clock!
I see them.
They must have spotted us coming out of their hideout as they were on their way in.
We're giving them way too easy a target by staying close together.
Hang on!
That was just a little too close for comfort.
I'll say. But a lucky break for us nonetheless. Our pursuers are leaving. They must have assumed we were killed on impact.
We almost were. So, what now?
First, we need to orient ourselves and find out exactly where we are. Hopefully, we're not too far from Mishima's research center.
What happened to Superfly?
We'll look for him later. He's more than proved he can take care of himself. Right now, I'm more concerned with finding Kage.
There's a sky shuttle at the top of the building. You never know. If it's still functional, it may take us where we need to go. Or at least get us close enough to go the rest of the way on foot.
Worth a shot. Let's find a lift.
Okay, let's... I swear to God, if I hear that line one more time. Now we're done with prisoners and we're on to armed guards and lady ninjas. Mikiko makes a crack about how someone needs to give us a sign, which is your cue to shoot the boxes of explosives below the sign on the building, which causes it to fall and break open a hole for you to progress through. Alright, fine, I'll give you that one. Our journey to the skylift is fine. Fairly generic stuff. Climb up, shoot enemies, try not to get stuck on a platform with Makiko when you need to get around her. It's mostly the music here that gets me, with its high-intensity BPM rock guitar cocaine-fueled rave club madness. San Francisco has my least favorite tracks in the whole game. Maybe because the guitar licks sound like they're trying to add just the right amount of metal cred to the goings-on, but it's just kind of cringe. I don't know, kids, like, I almost prefer the opening levels of Future Japan to this. After the great palette cleanser of the fantasy areas, this is all just kind of bland and even a little ugly. For a game whose textures have been constantly impressive and actually pretty to look at in all situations, the initial levels of San Francisco are grimy and plain and gross. Like, I was honestly having a decent amount of fun with the game up until this point, but the music, the dumb AI, the uninspired weapons, the pacing has hit a hard speed bump and honestly almost kills any good momentum we've built up so far. Plus, the guards keep repeating the same fucking lines over and over again, and I'm just desperate at this point for some kind of change-up. Anything. Fortunately, Mishima Labs is exactly the kind of respite I needed. San Francisco's first two levels are easily the worst in the whole of the game, including the opening, but Mishima Labs starts to build up good credit from here to the endgame. There's a lot of exploring to do, most of it fairly intuitive, finding key cards and navigating security systems. Somehow there are still rats running around the building, but you know, we can deal with that, because now we've got the fucking Nova Beam. I love the Nova Beam. It fires a couple of quick high-intensity laser bursts that frag anything in seconds or your money back guaranteed. Got me out of more than a few scrapes where I ought to have died. It's satisfying too, but the downside is that it's shoulder-mounted instead of handheld, so it covers up the upper right corner of the screen. At times I wanted to use it, but it also felt like my peripheral vision was being cut off, so I went with a different weapon. But still, this is easily one of the highlights of San Francisco, and the whole game in general. Now we get to play a game of Find That Keycard. Once you track down the green keycard, you get access to one of the internal transportation systems. From here, it's a matter of connecting dots and riding the right electric cars. Now, at first I thought I had to send Makiko down on one, and then I had to ride down the other, until I realized that they went down different paths to different goals. Do yourself a favor, don't find out the hard way what happens if you fall out of the car and onto the track. Do yourself another favor. When you hop in the car, before you press the go button, tell Makiko to stay where she is so she won't accidentally jump out of the car. I forgot one time. She jumped out and I had to reload my save because there was no way for her to get back into the car.
I'll be right there! Out of reach!
At this point, everything is pretty intuitive for the most part. Take an electric tram to one area, scavenge for a colored keycard, take it back to the area you need to get to. Generally fairly simple stuff. Hiro is level 12. The Daikatana is nearly maxed out. I'm going through the motions, searching, hunting, my patience slowly returning. But there's a pallor cast over the goings-on now, my earlier heavy frustrations clouding my enjoyment. San Francisco so far has been one strange frustration after another, so much so that I'm wary of this newfound ease of getting around. And again, there's nothing really bad happening here. It's just that this episode's time frame and weapons aren't nearly as interesting as the previous 3/4 of the game. What's driving me through the final stretch is more the idea that I'm going to get to see the ending of the game rather than any personal interest in seeing what's around the corner next. And God help me, I actually want to be interested in everything that's going on. Romero somehow pulled a deft feat of magic with this game. For something that starts so awkwardly, it transitions into something so fun and engaging that when it lags near the end like this, I'm actually kind of sad about it. This isn't the game that the legends or the scathing reviews have led me to believe it to be. Sure, there's a fair amount of roughness and sometimes quizzical design choices that can and sometimes do hamper the enjoyment of the overall game, but I thought I was walking into a terrifying disaster, an F5 tornado of nonsense and bullshit. But it isn't. It's actually really mostly good. Back to Mishima Towers. We finally arrived at the moment I've been waiting for all game. The Daikatana is fully charged, and it is glorious. A laser light show from the late 90s. All the crazy colored lighting effects the id Tech 2 engine can muster surrounding a samurai blade. I felt like an absolute time god. Of course, this area where they're doing some genetic testing is full of some bullshit design again. So you run around, press the use key on multiple computers, and we'll find some security camera footage on most of them. I ended up running around again for forever until I accidentally discovered that I had to look down at one of the control panels instead of just looking at it. It's one large piece of machinery, so I didn't think I had to look at a specific part of it, especially when everything else that I need to interact with, you just look at it. So this led to 20 minutes of confusion. And then, once I finally did figure it out, I was dropped downstairs with what looked like nowhere to go. The buttons to activate what I need to progress are hidden underneath some alcoves besides the specimen chambers, which also took me a minute or two to figure out, but I'm chalking that up to me not searching the area thoroughly enough. Once we're through, Mikiko gets to meet her ancestor, Professor Ibihara.
Smell that? This is so bizarre. Never thought I'd be coming face to face with one of my ancestors.
Let's just hope he'll listen to us. We could really use his help in tracking down Mishima.
What? What's the meaning of this? Where are your badges? This is restricted area. You don't have proper security clearance to be in here.
Don't be alarmed, Doctor. We just want to speak with you.
You don't work here, do you? Who are you?
I am Mikiko. Mikiko Ebihara.
Ibihara?
That's right. Hard as it may be for you to believe, I'm one of your descendants.
I'm calling security.
I'm sorry, but we can't let you do that. Not before you hear us out.
I'm listening.
Oh shit, here we go again with that kind of accent. Fuck. Oh, fuck. Okay, so there's a lot more of cheesy B-movie plot combined with racist accents in this cutscene. So, long story short, Mikiko is able to convince her ancestor to point them in the right direction to find Mishima by informing him that it was his work which led to the vaccine for the Philipox virus, not Mishima. Professor Ebihara gives them security access to Mishima's penthouse on the upper floor, while informing them Mishima is going to be leaving soon to meet with some military executives. The penthouse is another wild change of atmosphere, heavily decorated to resemble traditional Japanese living quarters, including a Zen garden which Makiko gives Mishima a little too much credit for.
Screw off, Scrambler. We'll see who gets the most frags in our next joyride. Screw off, Scrambler. We'll see who gets the most frags. Screw off, Scrambler. We'll see who gets the most frags in our next joyride.
Holy fucking shit, they just keep doing the thing. God, I can't stand that audio clip. And there's so many assholes here in this level who keep fucking repeating it. I swear to God, I swear to God, I will track down that voice actor someday. I will track him down, so fucking help me, and I will stare into his face and say that line to him again and again and again and again and again and again until there is nothing left but the bones in my body and the strength in my spirit as I finally break down his will and he stares back at me and says, "Who the fuck are you?" And I will answer, "Screw off, Strander." Sorry. It's funny how out of everything in this game's reputation, that's what gets me. Mishima's penthouse is a series of switch hunts, usually preceded by a security camera focusing on a corner or an object that has said switch on it, and you need to find it. Each successful hunt leads to a ladder near the top of the penthouse to lower, and you need to get all of them to lower in order to access the upper chambers. I lost Makiko at one point because I needed her to come up a ladder with me, which, in hindsight, I could have just backtracked around because the penthouse is one big interconnected map, but I put in some work to get her to follow me up a ladder and then around a very narrow walkway and actually stay on my heels as we did it. There are a lot of guards here to frag, including a bunch of cyber apes, so this level doesn't skimp on targets to tango with. There's a fun little section where Mishima has a bunch of paintings and weapons stored, including some ancient samurai armor, which I believe are trophies Mishima collected from various points in the time stream. That is a very interesting thing, and adds a few extra layers to Mishima's conquest, as up until this point we've just been led to believe that he came to the year 2030 in order to begin altering things to fit his image. There's also a very interesting statue of a 6-armed demon in his bedroom that looks so out of place here that it can't just be for show. Never mind that. We're here for Mishima and...
He's getting away!
Not for long. Did you check out those markings? That's a military chopper they took off in.
So, what about it?
Remember what Tatsuo told us? Mishima is headed towards the Navy SEAL training complex south of Bay Bridge. We can still get to him, but we've got to hurry. Come on.
Man, you're a sight for sore eyes. When I saw that explosion, well, let's just say that I was beginning to think that maybe you guys hadn't made it. What took you so long?
We'll fill you in. We're in somewhat of a rush.
Can I help you?
You boys stay back. I'll handle this. Hi. We're part of Kage Mishima's security staff. We were told to report here. Has he arrived yet? He should be expecting us.
Yes, ma'am. Matter of fact, your boss seemed pretty anxious to check out our nuclear reactor. I believe they're giving him a tour of the facilities as we speak.
I see. Would you be so kind as to direct us there?
No problem.
Works for me. Let's go.
That was quite possibly the dumbest fucking security guard I've ever seen, but I'm just going to allow it for now. We're here. It's the final level. We've come all the way for this. I'm happy to report that this is actually a pretty fun level to get through. Plenty of guards, some of them now wearing rocket-launching shoulder pads, and some absolutely deadly training courses to run through. They're all a series of rotating platforms with electrified floors underneath, so one slip equals instant death. I really should have gotten a lot more frustrated at these than I did, but for some reason I honestly enjoy environmental puzzles, all based around timing moving platforms. So this was really just kinda neat to unwrap. Except the Crusher puzzle, that could go to hell. More sharks! Oh, so the Meta Mazer, the ultimate weapon in this episode. Yeah, it's complete ass. You throw a cybernetic bug thing down onto the ground and it shoots a series of lasers at whoever is close to it. Then it explodes in multiple shockwaves with even more lasers than before. That all sounds well and good, except if you're too close, it will target you too. Don't even bother using it. I had only one time where I used it and it worked, but I accidentally threw 2 of them, so it felt like the 4th of July gone wrong. And then, finally, Kage Mishima.
This is it, folks. Home stretch. Keep your eyes peeled for any signs of trouble.
You've put me through an awful lot of trouble, Hiro. Still allying yourself with the rabble, I see. A shame it doesn't become someone with your ancestry to mingle with such riff-raff.
Riff-raff my ass. You and I got an old score to settle, boss man, and now it's payback time.
Alright, here's another overly long cutscene that I want to show you, but the dialogue is cheesy and chewy, so let's just cut to it. Mishima is pissed that you've been aggravating his plans, so he knocks out Superfly and Mikiko, and is prepared to end the entire universe by allowing the Daikatanas to touch during a duel. But Usagi's ghost shows up again and rushes Hiro, charging the sword with the blood of the entire Miyamoto bloodline. It's fucking go time, baby. So of course, I'm gonna do this the honorable way. I whip out the Daikatana and... Yeah, he can one-shot you if you're not careful. Mishima is a bastard of a fight. He's mildly invincible at times. He comes for your ass swinging his sword, and he will stop to throw fucking Japanese demon ghosts at you, and they fucking hurt a lot. I tried a meta mazer on him, but it hurt me more than it did him. After a couple of tries, though, the squishy Daikatana boss syndrome kicks in again, as I finally bust out the Nova Beam to microwave the old man, and he's done in seconds.
Caught the tail end of your duel, kid. Nice work. You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright.
So what now?
I'm not sure. Depends on...
Hiro, your sword.
But just because Mishima is done for doesn't mean we're done for. Hiro's copy of the Daikatana vanishes from existence. The game pulls a Back to the Future and explains that since they've killed Mishima, items from their timeline that were affected by his tampering will probably vanish. The crew realizes that they're probably going to vanish also unless they get the hell out of Dodge, but the remaining Daikatana has no energy. So, of course, since they're in a military base, they run down to the nuclear reactor and literally shove the goddamn sword into the center of the fusion cylinder to power it up. That is one of the most stupid and badass things I've seen in a video game or pretty much anything in any media. But this isn't the happy ending we've been hoping for.
Hey! What happened to the lights?
Something's wrong. Something's definitely wrong. What the... Where did it go?
Where did what go?
The Daikatana! It's gone!
What? How is that?
What? Holy shit, you killed my buddy Superfly!
Sorry, Hiro. 2 against 1 isn't quite fair.
My God! What have you done?
Only what needed to be done. You see, Mishima was right about me. You should have listened to him while you still had the chance.
What? What the hell are you talking about?
You've seen what the Daikatana can do. Tasted its power firsthand. How can you resist it? It's absolutely incredible. So intoxicating. Like wielding living lightning. Now I know what a god feels like.
Well, fuck, Makiko turned out to be evil, which shouldn't be surprising considering she wanted to leave Superfly behind back in episode 2. We get a full-on villain monologue from Mikiko talking about how her family was never as honorable as her father had laid claim, and how she's going to use the sword to go back in time and save her father before completing Mishima's plans for herself, remake the world in her image. It's super long, super overblown, absolutely on brand as a cutscene. Take it or leave it, kids. But now we've got one more boss fight to go through, and that's Makiko. And she one-shots me immediately. So I reload my save, fight Mishima again, take him out almost immediately with the rip gun, skip the cutscene, and almost immediately take out Makiko with the rip gun as well. She goes down fast and hard, and that's all for you. Hiro laments that this isn't how things need to be, how they should have gone. But like any true protagonist in a time travel story, he looks around and wonders if maybe it doesn't have to be like this after all. And what follows is a surprisingly poignant ending to this story. We go back to future Japan, only the Mishima science labs are now the Ebihara labs. Mikiko and Superfly are alive, as is Mikiko's father, and they discuss how Mikiko's recent journey to find the Daikatana was a failure, and that maybe if they'd been able to track down the sole heir to the Miyamoto clan, it could have been a success instead. instead. Superfly, who is the head of the Ebihara security, muses that the legends of the sword kind of make it out so that maybe this isn't a bad thing. That maybe something as powerful is better off not being found. Mikiko's father agrees and says that they salvaged the family legacy by finding the vaccine for the filovirus, and now ought to start looking forward to the future rather than the past. And then we get this shot of Hiro, alone and isolated, meditating in a shack in the same swamp we started the game in, surrounded by artifacts from throughout time, and the camera swoops down far underground below the shack, where we see the Daikatana in a glass display case, out of sight, out of reach, out of harm's way. Fade to black, the end, roll credits. All of this has a quiet, contemplative, introspective track that plays in the background, highlighting how this might be a happier ending for Superfly and Makiko. But for Hiro, saving his friends and protecting the Daikatana from outside threats now grants him a lonely existence in the end, which, fuck, that is a lot deeper and heavier content than I was expecting from this game. And so now I'm left with a genuinely serious question. Is this a good game? I mean, after everything I've been through and played, how I definitely enjoyed more of the game than I was frustrated by it, I have to say yes. Yes, this is a really good game. It's not great, nor would it come near the category of classic, but it's far better than the legacy of its reception would lead you to believe. If you told me once upon a time that I'd be playing Daikatana in the year 2021 and making a long-ass video to defend it on the internet, I would have laughed my ass off. And yet, here I am, writing this review, coming down to the wire and asking how I'm going to wrap this up. How do I summarize all of this? Daikatana is a bigger game than I imagined. Bigger, I think, than many of us imagined. I've got 13 hours of footage I'm sifting through to make this video, and about 17 hours of gameplay total on Steam. That's more time than I put into both Quake 1 and 2 combined. Daikatana is a thoroughly enjoyable game, barring some quirks and glitches and questionable design choices. Anyone walking into this expecting a boomer shooter is going to be disappointed, as the advertising that hyped it as such failed the game long before it launched. Expansive, epic, and engaging, Daikatana has great graphics, great controls, and a lot of fun beneath the very rough aspects of the game. Despite some frustrations that even a dedicated fan patch can't iron out, Daikatana is a fun RPG shooter full of passion and imagination and plenty of personality. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. What a fucking wild ride this was. I walked into this thinking I was going to finally bear witness to a legendary train wreck, and came out on the other side lamenting that there isn't more for me to enjoy. And I really enjoyed this. I want to go back through and give it another playthrough, experiment with the weapons some more, maybe see if I can level up Hiro further than I did. Maybe find some of the secrets. I'm almost sad that I'm wrapping up this script. I don't want to move on into the editing process and finish this video and be done with it. I want to dive back in and play some more and get more footage or write more about it, which 21 years after release, after everything this game has been through, that's a hell of a statement to make. And what's worse is that I feel like seeds had been sown throughout the game to give us a sequel. Remember the Hand of Time and Death to Hiro graffiti? Okay, well at the end when Hiro is meditating, I got the impression that he went back to stop Mishima back in San Francisco, and that part of his battle against Mishima resulted in that graffiti. While our crew was running around that military base, the Hiro we get at the end of the game is also running through time, trying to patch things up and prevent Mishima's takeover in the future. Remember Usagi's ghost? I don't think that was his ghost. I think that was Usagi moving through time to direct Hiro's journey. And that 6-armed demon statue in Mishima's bedroom? I have a strong feeling that had something to do with Mishima's rise to power before getting the Daikatana. That's practically an entire game in and of itself. Daikatana 2 took place during Daikatana. Jesus, I'm theory crafting Daikatana. Look at this shit. But at the end of the day, even though there could be more, it might be best that there isn't. John Romero, the unstoppable force, found out the hard way that simply being an unstoppable force isn't enough to carry through the development of a game. And as much as I give John Carmack shit for being an immovable object, the two of them working together in tandem allowed them to temper each other, make one slow down and think, and sharpen the other. Romero without Carmack was wild, intangible, diving headfirst into excess and promises and constant flux. Much like Makiko, for Romero, Daikatana was an intoxicating idea, living lightning in his hands. But at the end, it was something that he couldn't control simply by surging forward. Without taking more time for consideration on the hows and whys, there was simply too much chaos in the halls of Ion Storm during development for this to truly become what he wanted it to be. And you have to admit, for what this is, the amount of sheer talent Romero has is still on display. His ego and swagger were there for good reason. It's commendable now that he could craft something this engaging, something clearly made of passion, but too alive and without the necessary containment to keep it from being too chaotic. Much like the sword, perhaps it is best for Daikatana the game to be put away into a glass case, on display, to remember where it came from and how it came to be, of its legacy, not to be continued, but to still be experienced by those who are willing. And for what it's worth, if I'm comparing and contrasting Quake 2 versus Daikatana over which one is better, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Daikatana is a better game. Certainly the more enjoyable one. Wild, full of character and charm, and bursting with ideas, Daikatana is a game that you owe it to yourself to play, kids. To bear witness, to remember history, to see for yourselves just what is contained in this flop of a game. The one that Romero had more fun working on than he did Quake. And if you've made it this far in this video, kids, which I hope you have, and you have my thanks if you did, then hopefully I've been able to convince you that Daikatana really is a fun experience, even if it's a flawed one. And what's even more tragic about this glimpse into history and understanding is looking at how much fun this game is in this state, and just how much better of a game it would have been had it only been allowed to cook a little longer, with just a little more care and time. God damn it, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but 24 years after seeing that stupid advertisement for the first time, he did it. He actually did it. John Romero made me his bitch.